The Toyota Celica holds firm in the memories of everyone who has ever loved Toyota. It brought its owners moderate sportiness or GT capabilities at a reasonable budget, something a good number of people could afford. Toyota has official sales figures of 5.3 million worldwide across the Celica's lifespan, which spans 7 generations lasting from 1970 until 2006. The vast majority of these sales comprise the first 3 generations. This in itself speaks to the popularity of not just the vehicle, but also what it originally represented, a touch of affordable fun. Although the Celica is perhaps most iconic for leading to the introduction of the infamous Supra, there was a time before all this. In fact, in 1970, the original first-generation Celica was released to the public. Perhaps nobody quite knew how iconic it would become at the time, but here we are over 50 years later, looking back at what has become a car with an established global presence. Before we get started, allow me to introduce our Toyota Supra-inspired t-shirts. Elevate your style with these premium tees that pay homage to the legendary Supra. Crafted for enthusiasts by enthusiasts, these shirts blend comfort and iconic design. Whether you're a die-hard Supra fan or simply appreciate automotive excellence, our t-shirts let you wear your passion. Join us in celebrating the Supra legacy and grab yours today via the link below. Upgrade your wardrobe and show the world your love for this iconic sports car. The Celica was designed and produced in Japan but was designated for the American market. This is a small detail, but it influenced many decisions in the development of the Celica across not just its first iteration, but the entire production lifespan. In 1964, the same year that Toyota re-entered the American market after a rebranding and a 3-year hiatus, Ford introduced a little-known phenomenon you may have heard of, the Mustang. It's often referred to as the 1964.5 Mustang, thanks to its introduction halfway through the usual production year. With its choice between an inline-6 or a selection of V8s, the Mustang was an instant hit, selling over 500,000 in 1965. Underneath it all, the Mustang was actually a humble Ford Falcon, the first compact car ever to be sold by one of America's big 3 car manufacturers and itself based on the Ford Galaxy sedan. Ford produced the Falcon using unibody chassis in which the bodywork and frame are combined. By taking this model and redesigning it to create something sporty and unique, Ford capitalized on a resource they already had and created something incredible and iconic. As well as being one of the most well-known classics in the world, the 1964.5 Mustang was utterly unique. It didn't fall perfectly into any of the pre-existing car categories, and so a new class of vehicles was introduced to the US, the pony car. Without getting too bogged down in the debate around precisely defining a pony car, most people agree it's a 2-door coupe or convertible, slightly smaller than a typical muscle car and with more sleek, refined styling. The Celica was produced to target this pony car market in America. It carried similar classic styling. In some cases, the 2 cars were unashamedly comparable. We're talking about you, 1973 liftback. It was also released alongside the Carina, originally a family-orientated sedan coupe with which it shared a chassis. This allowed Toyota to produce 2 vehicles for near the cost of one. Back to Ford and its Mustang. Sales figures started impressively but started to drop off through the 1960s. By the time 1970 arrived, they had slumped to around 190,000, partly due to competitor models such as the Dodge Charger and the Chevy Camaro. This evened the playing field somewhat for Toyota and paved the way for their venture into this section of the North American market. After the designing and planning stages were approaching completion, Toyota decided it was time to unveil their new vehicle. The Celica was first seen publicly at the Tokyo Motor Show in October 1970 and was marketed from December. Like the Mustang and the other small coupe pony cars coming onto the scene in the US, the Celica's main selling points were relative affordability, smooth styling, and an emphasis on driving experience. In fact, many of these vehicles could be considered small GT cars more than sports cars. At first, the Celica could only be bought as a standard hardtop coupe, otherwise known as a notchback. There was only one trim level available in the States, the ST. In comparison, 4 could be purchased in Japan, the ET, LT, ST, and GT. The first model to reach America was the Ta22 1971 ST, marketed initially with a 1.9-liter 18R inline 4. This was upgraded to the 18RC 2-liter the following year. New Celica trim levels came to North America for the 1974 model year, with the more affordable LT and sportier GT giving buyers more choice. At the same time, a few minor changes were also made to the badge, wheel arches, and mandated bumpers. The model code TA was given to the notchback coupe, while RA was assigned to the later liftback models. 3 transmission options were available across the 3 trims as of the 1974 model year. These were the Celica Steelcase 4-speed W40 or 5-speed W50 manuals, or the 3-speed A40 automatic. The LT was similar to the ST trim originally offered. The GT, however, came with the 5-speed W50 manual, also came as standard along with AM/FM radio, styled wheel trims, upgraded tires, a custom leather-wrapped steering wheel, and GT rocker panel stripes. The 1975 facelift meant the American GT had either a 2.0-liter 18R or a 2.2-liter 20R with the model codes RA23 and RA24 respectively. Both of these engines were single overhead cam inline 4s. The 1975 facelift saw a liftback coupe released under the model code RA. It was 70mm longer, and its rear end saw a significant change. It doesn't take a second glance to see that the Celica's back end is extremely similar to that found on the contemporary Mustang. Many enthusiasts even refer to the Celica first generation facelift liftback as the Japanese Mustang or the Mustang Celica. The inspiration and towing the line copyright infringement is clear to see. The Celica GT has gone down in history as a brilliant car, with the lower trims falling off the radar over time. It's always lived in the shadow of the far more well-known Ford Mustang of the same generation. So now it's time to put them side by side. Can the Celica stand on its own too, or does the Mustang trample it underfoot? For this comparison, it's only fair to put the 2 most well-known and respected trim levels and specs head to head. In short, the stock Celica GT would never match the Mustang for power or speed. It boils down to the vast difference in engine size, with the Mustang's much larger V8 having more than double the cc's and horsepower. In Japan, with much stricter laws on motor capacity, Toyota simply didn't have a powerful competitor. Well, not yet at least. However, that's not the be-all and end-all. Neither vehicle received completely stellar reviews. For instance, both suffered from traction issues. But the Celica actually comes out on top in many areas. It's far lighter than its American competitors, for example, and also narrower and half a meter shorter. The 5-speed W50 manual was industry leading. The coil springs and McPherson struts on the Celica triumphed the Mustang's leaf springs in every department, making it a far more comfortable riding experience. Of course, the Celica would eventually see a now infamous submodel first known as the Double X in Japan and later marketed as the Supra. Fitted with one of Toyota's inline 6M engines, this led to the power and performance lacking from the original Celica, especially by the 80s. Ultimately, this meant that the Supra, an offshoot of the Celica range, became the main answer to the Mustang, but not for another decade or two. For now, despite being introduced to compete in the new pony car class, the Celica and the Mustang were essentially designed for different customers. The Mustang for those who wanted speed, power, and iconic yet affordable American muscle. The Celica for those willing to trade these ideals for something less shouty and more comfortable and practical. We've taken the time to briefly run through the history of the Celica, the car that led to and inspired the world-renowned Supra. Yes, it isn't the quickest nor the most powerful, but this plucky player brings much more to the table than HP numbers. It settled in its place on the world stage, marking itself as a relatively cheap, comfortable, and beautiful vehicle designed to be both practical and sporty. Production would last 7 generations before the rise of SUVs made the market almost redundant and the Celica was withdrawn and lost. Never forget the humble roots where the Supra and a good chunk of Toyota's success in North America began. The original Celica deserves to be remembered.